As I said before, in the second half of the course, we're going to start looking at specific types of markets. Okay, so we've only actually looked at one type of market so far, and that's called a perfectly competitive market, otherwise known as a perfect competition. Okay, so that's all we've looked at so far. We didn't really talk about explicitly that that's what we're doing. And so this week, we're going to come back and take a closer look at perfectly competitive markets. And then after that, in the subsequent weeks, we're going to look at other types of markets that we find in the real world, and we're going to use our perfect competition as a comparison point, okay? Because we're going to find out, kind of giving you the conclusion early, we're going to find out this type of market is efficient, right? And so then we're going to compare this type of market to all the other kinds of markets, which won't be quite as efficient. Okay, so we're looking at perfectly competitive markets, and you can tell by the name. This is something special, so perfect, right? So it's as good as it can be, and competitive. So this perfect is giving us the idea this has efficiency, and actually this type of market has both types of efficiency, both allocative and economic efficiency. So it's allocative efficient, makes people as well off as possible, and also we do things as cheaply as possible. Okay, so it has both kinds of efficiency. And it's competitive. You can picture it, lots and lots of firms all competing against each other, and also lots of customers all competing against each other. So then in those subsequent weeks, we'll come back and remove some of these requirements and see what happens. Okay, so let's see what are the characteristics, or maybe we can say the assumptions, the requirements to be this kind of market. So one thing, we need many buyers and sellers. So we've actually done this before when we talked about supply and demand. We're just coming back to this idea. So you need many buyers and sellers. So if you don't have many sellers, then it's not going to be very competitive. There's just a few, so they don't have that much competition. And same thing, we actually need many buyers too. So there's a type of market that only has one seller. That's called a monopoly. But there's also a type of market that only has one buyer, and that's called a monopsony. So whenever your side has very few people on it, or very few actors on it, it tends to give you more power, right? Because the other side has few choices, and so they pretty much almost have to come to you, or at least they have to come to you or one or a few others, right? So in this one, we have many buyers, many sellers. So lots of people buying this good and lots of people selling this good. Okay. Second requirement, we need identical products. Okay, so our products have to be the same. If the products we're selling are not the same, if they're recognizably different, then even if there are many buyers and sellers, it's a different kind of market. And we're going to come back and look at that kind of market in a few weeks. And so in the short run, that's all we need to have perfect competition. If you have many buyers and sellers selling identical products, then the short run part of this market shows how they'll behave. And the third thing we need, and this is in the long run, we need it to be easy to enter or exit the market. Okay? So this makes it be competitive in the long run. So this is going to make it so that if this market is very profitable, for example, then people can come in and try to take this profit, right? So they have to be able to enter in, and also firms have to be allowed to fail as well, so that firms that aren't doing well can then exit the market. So the most common example of this actually is agricultural products. Okay, so the most common example might be like wheat or corn or soy. Okay, so there's these kind of they're usually called commodities. So in the commodities market, these are identical products. So if you're a certain grade of corn, a certain color, a certain grade of corn, then they're all basically in the same category. They're all considered identical products. The same thing with wheat. So once they're in that grade, they're graded, but everything in that grade is all the same. And there's many buyers, so people around the world are buying these. There's many sellers. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of farmers growing these products, so there's many sellers, right? And then easy to enter and exit. Well, you might say, well, it's not that easy, but it's easier to become, for example, a wheat farmer than it is to start an auto company, for example, or to start a new airlines or some other really complicated type of business. So as businesses go, this is relatively low entry point compared to some others. One other thing which you might not be very familiar with, but it was another fairly common example of this, is that some kind of market where, and this is very common in developing countries and not at all in the US, these kind of markets where many people in the same market are selling the same thing. There's also like street food where many people are selling basically the same thing. One example, if you've ever been in New York City, might be the hot dog vendors. That in New York City, they're almost all selling basically the same thing. And so in some ways, this is kind of like perfect competition. Okay, so anyways. Okay, some characteristics about this before we move on. So first of all, it's the most competitive type of market, right? And this is going to be our comparison. So the most competitive type of market, and then it's going to be the standard. So it's going to be the standard by which to which other markets are compared, other market types. Okay, so that's key idea. So this is the most competitive, and that's for we're going to use it as the comparison. Now, let's just look at the first one and the second one. Okay, many buyers and sellers, identical products. This is absolutely the most important thing to get clear about this market. The firms and the customers are known as price takers. And just to make sure that you are clear on that, I'm going to underline this and circle it. Okay, in rainbow. So this is absolutely most important thing about this market. The firms and the customers are price takers. So why are they price takers? Well, they're price takers because they're too small. So each individual is too small. So you're one farmer and you're growing the exact same corn as thousands and thousands of other farmers. And therefore, you're not going to be able to, when it's time to sell your product, you're going to be able to say, oh no, I will not take $3 a bushel. For me, I want $5 a bushel because it costs me more to do it. No, that's not how these markets work. Every person who grows this product, who produces this thing, is going to receive the same. Whatever the market price is, that's what you're going to receive, right? And same thing for you as a consumer of these products. You're not going to be able to go and negotiate individually for how much you're going to pay for them. You're going to just be a price taker. You're too small. So let me actually add one word to this. So each individual firm or buyer is too small to affect the market price. So that is a key assumption, and that's key to get it clear, right? They're all too small compared to the market. And one of the things is these markets are really huge. These are generally worldwide markets. And so obviously one farmer in Iowa, even if this farmer is fairly big, they're not big enough to have any impact on the world market for their product. Okay, so that's the basic assumption of this market. And in the next one, we'll come back and look at how to analyze this type of market.